We are 3 weeks into World War III. China's invasion of Taiwan has been met with American planes and submarines. About 3,200 U.S. troops have died, and 2 American aircraft carriers have sunk in the Pacific. China has also taken a big hit, losing 10,000 troops and hundreds of combat aircraft and ships. Taiwan maintains its democratic autonomy, but the war has left the island devastated, losing basic services such as electricity. Japan and South Korea come to aid their American ally facing attacks from China. This is how a new global war would play out, according to a war game simulation conducted by a Washington think tank. But are we really that close to another major war? Well, some experts think we can't rule it out. Today we'll explore how we got to this point, how this war would be fought, and which nation would survive in the end. Let's start with the troubled relationship the US and China have had for a long time. The world's 2 largest economies have a long story of mistrust, tariff wars, and recently, spy balloons. But the most active region of tension between China and the US is Taiwan. This democratically ruled island is home to 24 million citizens. After the Communist Party won a civil war in 1949, the Nationalist Party fled to Taiwan and established a democracy. And although they've never controlled it, the Chinese Communist Party claims Taiwan as part of its own territory. So if the war took place and China captured Taiwan, it would not only weaken US power in the Indo-Pacific region, but it would also make China a world leader in semiconductors and microchip manufacturing. The United States has maintained a diplomatic position, walking a tightrope between acknowledging a one-China policy without actually recognizing Beijing's sovereignty over Taiwan. This ambiguity keeps tempers high and the country's relationships on the brink of conflict. U.S. President Joe Biden said at a Congress session in 2021 that he would maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, not because he wants to start conflict, but to prevent it. Chinese Communist Party's General Secretary Xi Jinping responded by stating he doesn't rule out the use of military force to seize Taiwan. He also told the People's Liberation Army they should persist in using combat to guide their work and accelerate preparations for war. Sounds like China is ready for an invasion, but is it really possible? Foreign Minister of Taiwan Joseph Wu says they're trying to get ready for an attack, although they're not anticipating one in the immediate future. Wu also claimed Taiwan would fight the war itself rather than have other countries involved. But according to the Sydney Morning Herald, the United States would be helpless to stop a Chinese attack on Taiwan. Yeah, Beijing's rocket force is capable of crushing Taiwan's military along with its infrastructure and ports. By the time Washington learns of the attack, the Chinese missiles would have already caused extensive damage. But remember, China doesn't want to destroy the island, it wants to control it. And although it's not impossible, an invasion is easier said than done. The Chinese army would have to deploy their armed forces along the beach to reach the capital of Taiwan, Taipei. Even though China can quickly capture the island, it'll still have to deal with retaliations that could happen once the U.S. learns of the news.
If China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country.
The Americans will soon send stealth planes, submarines, and aircraft carriers. But how many? And what awaits them when they arrive? The U.S. has about 3,700 warplanes currently in service between the Air Force, Navy, and Marines. China has 1,264 combat aircraft. Taiwan's 150,000 troops wouldn't stand a chance against 1.9 million Chinese soldiers, the biggest army in the world. The U.S. has the 3rd largest armed force, with 1.38 million active members. China has 320 nuclear warheads, 350 Navy ships, and 41 military satellites. The Americans have only 249 Navy ships, but they own 5,800 nuclear weapons and 212 military satellites. But of course, numbers aren't all that matter here. The U.S. Army might be smaller than the Chinese, But American soldiers have been fighting wars for the past 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. Their training, experience, and equipment can give them an advantage over their Chinese counterpart. But the United States can't afford to send all of its troops to Asia. Meanwhile, the People's Liberation Army is already located near the conflict zone and can concentrate its forces. The Chinese dominance over the seas in the region is incredibly strong. They have 10 man-made islands which are used as military bases. These islands are practically aircraft carriers that cannot be sunk. The US would have to send teams of Marine raiders to attack weapon systems. This would require satellite-guided munitions. This raises another question. How is a modern war actually fought? All this nuclear talk got you feeling uneasy? We don't blame you. Would you make it as the last person on Earth? Hit that subscribe button for some post-apocalyptic survival tips. A big part of this war would happen in space. Yeah, you heard me, space. Both sides would try to mislead or feed false information to each other's satellites, preventing drone attacks. New resources, such as long-range anti-ship weapons, can help the US fire at enemy ships without having to even enter the airspace, significantly reducing casualties. But their supply would run out within days. China is a world leader in the production of chemicals, metals, and electronics. It would be able to produce weapons and supplies much faster than the US. Cyber warfare is also an important component of any modern war. China has a history of hacking incidents in both the US and Taiwan. A cyber attack would damage people's lives in American homes by affecting electricity, connectivity, and healthcare, among other public services. Some other tactics might seem less violent, but can still destabilize a country fast. Take exports, for example. The US gets to import Chinese electronics, furniture, and shoes at moderate prices. If the war disrupts these exports, it could cause a depletion of products. That would destabilize thousands of businesses in America, causing unemployment and inflation. Now you see why this war is so tricky? Even a victory could feel like a defeat in the long run for the US. Some experts think that the war is extremely unlikely to happen because it would disrupt the imports and exports that China relies on for its economy. All calculations and simulations point to disastrous consequences and millions in losses for both nations and allies. We can only hope this is enough to prevent a new global war. Are you willing to fight a war for your country? The first step is training, and many don't get past this point. Check our video of Navy SEAL Hell Week to see if you have what it takes to become a soldier.